Okay, so if you weren't aware, we're going over Toolkit Part 2 today, which is essentially a deep-ish dive into discussions, assignments, and quizzes. So we're going to talk about how they look when they're set up, how to set one up for each category, and then how to assess them all, and then how to add them to the content tool. So we're going to go over hopefully all of those things, and we'll do our best. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll get started here. Okay. So I am sharing my screen and it's showing my homepage for Brightspace. Just in case you've forgotten or you want a refresher, to get into Brightspace, you just go to learn.marywood.edu and then sign in with your portal information. So we get here to the organizational homepage, and to get to our course, we go up to the waffle icon, and if you have it pinned, great, you just click on it. Otherwise, you can search for it, or it'll be up here towards the top. All your recently accessed courses will always be right below the pinned ones. So I'm going to click on my course and open it up. So the three big tools that we talk about in Brightspace and have been talking about is discussions, assignments, and quizzes. So these are ones you've probably used in Moodle. Discussions are akin to the forums in Moodle, and then assignments are pretty much the same, and same with quizzes. They all just kind of look a little different. We're going to start with discussions though, because they have a bit of a different vocabulary than they did in Moodle, so it's a little bit to get used to. The overall tool is called discussions, but we have these buckets or umbrella sort of discussion areas that are called forums. So these are kind of like overarching categories for your discussion topics, which are the topics that students will reply to. So whatever you set up, like, I have weekly discussion number 1, that would be a topic. And then they reply to weekly discussion number 1 with their own threads. So in Moodle, it used to just be forums and then you start a discussion or a topic. But in Brightspace, the instructor sets up the topic and the student goes through and creates a thread that other students then post and respond to. It kind of lays it out for you a little bit in case you forget. The forums are these big text ones. So if you don't remember technically what it is, it's just the big text, and then underneath it is the topics, which they do have labeled. In my topic, you can see there is one thread, and that is by a demo student, and then there is one post in there as well. So it kind of just trickles down. A good use for forums would be, I know Kat in her statistics class has a rendezvous point forum, which is just kind of general questions, introductions, all kinds of like minimal things that really aren't core to her course. But then as you scroll down, her next forum is weekly discussions. So she has like guidelines here for when things are due. And then there's discussion 1 for weeks 1 through 2. It's broken down a little more intensely than the rendezvous point. So you can kind of use them to your benefit, or you can not use them at all. So it's really dependent on how often you're going to be using the discussions tool, whether you're going to use it in this manner or not. But I think we do have to make at least one forum and then put the topics inside that forum. So in order to do that, we just click on New, and we start with New Forum. You may also see New Topic there. Off the top of my head, I can't remember if you're able to make a topic without a forum, but we usually start with a new forum and then kind of give it a name and then add topics to it from there. So a nice example of a forum, like I mentioned, would be something like weekly discussions. So we would have an overarching title for all of the topics that we'll put in this later. You can see right after this, it says create a new topic in this forum with the same title. So if you wanted to just do one forum and put all your topics in there, you can make the very first topic the same title as your forum. So that's an option, but it's not defaulted. So you can just kind of keep it as it is. My forum title is weekly discussions, and then I could use the description area for whatever I want to put on that main discussion tool page. Because as you've noticed with the statistics page, I'm going to scroll up a little bit more. Under the forum any instructions appear right there on the discussion tool page so the students can see it before they even enter a topic. So something like guidelines would be super useful here, or even like the rendezvous point does not have description, but something like welcome to the course, your posts are due on Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. Something instructional so they know like what to expect going in and interacting with these topics. So I'm going to say something like, welcome to our weekly chats. Please have your topics posted by Wednesday night at 11:59 p.m. So something basic like that, or you can go into more detail. Of course, because it is a text area, we have our HTML editor, which includes all of our insert stuff tools, like the video notes. You can add a video explaining everything instead of text, or you could do both. You can add a YouTube video if you need to provide context for your forum. There's links you can add, pictures, anything from the learning repository once we get that up and running, and anything from your computer, of course. So you can use that to your advantage. You also have insert image just as its own tool. And of course, we have our quick links. So for the quick links, as we have talked about in our previous weeks, you can use that to refer to any other activities. So if there's a resource in your content tool that you want to link to that they should be discussing in this forum, then insert your quick link in that manner. You can click on that and find your resource either here in content. You can find it in your modules just by clicking on one. And then you can just kind of click on whether it be another discussion, or if you want to click on an assignment that they should be thinking about, or even like a video that they should have watched beforehand. You can just link that right in your description and they'll see it on that front page. So of course, all of these other tools are available to you, all the formatting that you can do, so you can make it as pretty as you like. A very cool part about the discussion forums is that you have these options that apply to all topics in the forum. So if you're applying these options here while creating a forum, it applies to every topic you make in this forum going forward. Of course, you can change this at any point, but it's just important to know that it applies to all of them. And you can apply these options at the topic level if you'd rather do it individually. But if you want to do it for all the topics, you can do things like allow anonymous posts. So you can have students post anonymously if it's something like a journal entry or something similar. You can have a moderator approve individual posts before they display in the forum, which is pretty much, I believe, you as the instructor would serve as a moderator, and then as they post, you have to approve them, which could be nice for certain situations, but if you're using like a weekly discussion situation, maybe not the best option, just because it involves more work for you at the front of it, especially if you're planning on assessing them later anyway. Then you have users must start a thread before they can read and reply to other threads in each topic. So that kind of serves as the Q&A forum type from Moodle. So they must post a thread before they can look at any others. So that kind of promotes originality. And then display forum description and topics. So that pretty much means whatever I put here in the description will display in the description of every topic that I put in this forum. So that's most useful for something like guidelines. I believe that's what Kat did with the weekly discussions in her stats course. These guidelines appear in every topic going forward so that they know when things are due and how to post. So it's kind of useful in that respect. But otherwise, like I said, you can kind of just go through and make these options for each topic instead of doing it all at once in the forums, but this is an option. There's also restrictions up here at the top, and the restrictions has the ability to hide from users if you're not ready for them to see this forum just yet. We have availability dates like we talked about last week with the modules. It's the same sort of idea. Your start date starts the visibility and the end date completely stops the visibility. So if you want a forum to appear for just a week for like a remedial reason, or just in general, you want it to be like a special bonus event or something, you can do a start and end date and then it will stop appearing in your discussions tool. But by default, there is no availability start or end date. It kind of just appears visible from the day you create it. There's also locking options, which is kind of like your due date in your modules, where it does not affect visibility. It just affects when things are, suggested to be due. You can say when they are due, but the locking options would kind of give students a visual of when posting is due in this forum. But again, it's not defaulted, so you don't have to lock it by any means. We also have release conditions, so we can create new release conditions, or we can attach existing ones if we have them on other resources. We kind of talked about it last week with content and content pages, but it's the same idea with your condition types and condition details. You can play around with those. And then there's group and section restrictions, which is useful if you're planning on using groups. But I believe we will be discussing groups in a future week. And when you do create groups in Brightspace, you can already choose to put them into specific forums so they can discuss amongst themselves. So you don't really need to worry about the setting too much. But it is here, and it's in that restrictions tab, as I mentioned, when you're making a new forum. I'm going to go back to properties and just kind of save this up, but does anyone have any questions so far about the overarching forum umbrella? I know it's new technology name, and I'm still getting used to it too, so it's a little strange to call it a forum when I know that Moodle calls it something else. But if not, totally interrupt me if you have questions. I will not be offended. All right. So
all good here.
Awesome. Great. So I've made my forum. Now I can save and close it so I can go back to the discussions tool, or if you want to add a topic right now, you can click save and add topic and it opens up the new topic page. So this is actually a topic that students will then create threads in response to. So this is something that is actually going to be responded to, whereas the forum is just kind of like the house for all the discussion topics and threads thereafter. So in our topic, we have a couple different things to look at. First of all, we have forum. So if you have forums, and you will, you have to select which one the topic will live in. And if you clicked save on your forum and clicked add new for topic, it's just going to select the forum we just created by default. But you can see here we have the option to select a previous forum that I've created, or we can create a new one right here. So you have that option. Whenever you create a topic, you can just create a forum right from this little page. Makes it super easy. And then you could always go back in and edit that forum for like your different options if you want to assign options to the forum. So just like with the forum, we have our title. I'll say like week 1 discussion. And then the description appears in the topic when they click on it. So post by the end of Wednesday. And we can also use our HTML editor. So all of those tools are available. And then, like I mentioned, we have the options at the topic level. So these options only apply to this specific topic. So we can allow anonymous posts just for this topic. We can have posts be approved by a moderator just for this topic as well. And then users must start a thread before they can reply to others. So you have those options as well. The only one that isn't there is the one about including the description and other topics, because we're not at the umbrella forum level. So these are the 3 most important options that you can use on your topics. We also have the option to rate posts, and I'm pretty sure this is between students instead of instructor to students, because in Brightspace you do have the option to assess your discussion posts, whereas in Moodle it was called ratings, and that's kind of how we assessed discussion posts. But here these ratings apply mostly to students, or at least that's what I believe. So we have 3 different rating schemes. We have our 5-star rating scheme, so 1 through 5. We have an upvote, downvote rating scheme, which if you're familiar, it's kind of like Reddit, where you upvote things that you like, downvote things you don't. So if this was a topic about like favorite ice cream flavors, someone could post that their favorite is chocolate chip cookie dough, and people could either upvote it to agree or downvote it to disagree. So there's that kind of scheme. And then there's the upvote only rating scheme, which just means that you can upvote it if you agree. It's kind of nice for if you have a question topic, you just want to submit an area for students to submit questions. You can enable an upvote only rating scheme so that if someone asks a question and others also have that question, they can upvote it so that you have an idea of what people are asking. I believe the Brightspace community kind of operates like that. That's their communal support area, essentially. So if people have questions or ideas for different features in Brightspace, people can upvote them to give them a higher rating so that maybe they'll be a part of Brightspace. So all that to say, it's kind of the same thing. So once you're done with your topic, at least in the properties, you'll notice at the top there are 3 other tabs to look at that will only look at restrictions and assessment. So restrictions is very much similar to the restrictions for forums. You have your hide from users and your availability dates, your locking options, release conditions, and those group and section restrictions. So exactly the same as the forums, and they apply in a very similar way. The only big difference here between forums and topics, other than the posting ability, is this assessment tab. So the assessment tab is how we connect the topic to a grade item so that it appears in the gradebook, if you want it to appear in the gradebook. So if we click on assessment, our first option here is grade item. So if you already created the grade item in your grade book for this topic, you could just select it from the dropdown. But odds are, at least if I were an instructor, I probably wouldn't have done that. I'd probably do it on the fly. They let you create the grade item right here, so you don't have to leave the page. So you just click new grade item and you give it a name so it appears in the grade book and you know what it is. So for this, I would just say like week 1 discussion, and then you could give it a short name so that it doesn't unformat the grade book in a way. So you can just say like week 1 and leave it that way, or however you want to name it. If you have categories in your grade book, you can select a category. Otherwise, don't worry about it. You can show or hide a description for this grade item in case you don't remember what you were trying to grade on it or what it even was based on your name, but that is not something you need to do by default. You have your maximum points. So how many points do you want it to be worth at its maximum? You can choose whether it can exceed those points, whether it's a bonus item, exclude from final grade calculation. And then we have our grade schemes. The default scheme is percentage. We also have those restrictions where we can hide it from users, the availability of this grade item, and yeah, that's pretty much it for the grade item creation from the assessment tab. But we do have some more options, as you can see behind the window. But keep in mind this maximum points, because there's also, once we save, a score out of area. So the maximum points that we created in the grade item refers to the max amount of points that they can get. But you can change this score out of to a different number, and then it will automatically calculate to the grade book based on the max amount of points you want to set. So say you had like 3 different points you wanted students to hit in their post in this topic. You can say, all right, I'm grading this out of 3, but in the grade book, it'll translate to 10. So Brightspace will do the calculation for you and it won't be confusing. So that's just something to keep in mind. They can be different or they can be exactly the same. So it could be a score out of 10 for a max of 10. That's probably the easiest way to go, but just know that you can customize it. From here, you can also add a rubric. So if you didn't have one already, I actually do, which is surprising. But if you didn't have one already, you could create one. From here, you would just kind of click on it to look at it if you weren't sure what the rubric actually was. Mine is not filled out, but it does exist. You can select whichever one you like and click Add Selected. If you didn't have one already, you can create a rubric in a new window, and that just kind of opens up the rubric panels, and you can adjust the different levels and what each criterion is and what kind of feedback you provide if they achieved that criterion. So that is super simple to do, and once you create that rubric, you can use it on anything else in this course at least. I'm not sure if it applies to your account in Brightspace as a whole, but at least in this course, if you had multiple weeks where you wanted to use this rubric, once you make it once, you can select it again. So it's easy to go back to. So if you wanted to create a rubric, you can, but otherwise you select one and it shows up here. You can edit it if you need to. And then you can also allow the assessment of individual posts, which is kind of what it looked like in Moodle, where you rated their individual postings. So if you click on this, you can actually see that selecting this option would allow the instructors to assess the posts and the topic. So if they are posting multiple posts, you can see the students and kind of individually assess them. Though, as we will see in a couple minutes, when you do go to assess discussion posts for students, you kind of click on the student and then it shows all of their posts. So you can kind of just grade them all at the same time anyway. But if you wanted to do individual posts, you can kind of have an average post score of all of the scores that you gave to their posts. You can do maximum or minimum, and then like a mode post score and a sum of post scores, which is kind of akin to what we did in Moodle. We used to do sum of ratings, and that was the grade in the grade book. So if you're used to that method of grading in Moodle, then this is probably the closest thing you'll get to it. So we have our assessment all ready to go. All we have to do is just save and close. But before I continue, is there anything that you want me to clarify or any questions you have about the topic creation or the assessment fill out setup thing? If not, that is okay. So we will save and close it. And now if I scroll past my exploration forum, we have our new weekly discussions forum. We have my description here, as well as a quick link to this random video. You'll probably make it more relevant than I did. And then we also have our first topic. So we have our description for the topic that they can see straight from the discussions page. And it also says that it includes assessment. So the students will also see this and see that when they enter this topic and post, they know it will be graded. You can also see something similar up here on my first topic. It says that you must post first, so the students know they cannot see anything else until they post. It also says the availability on it, so I had it start on Monday, August 10th, which is why it's still here. Whereas in Kat's stats discussion area, she has a lot more things going on, so I just wanted to show you what some of these would look like. She has group and section restrictions on some of these discussions, so students would also be able to see if that were the case. We have our availability and unlock dates here that she has enabled. You can also see from the instructor point of view that you can see the number of threads that have been created. So in this case, it's 22, and how many posts have been created too. And these little parentheses off to the right is the number of unread posts. So because I'm not in this course, I have 66 unread posts. And you can see who the last one was. And as you go down, you kind of just see the little descriptions of things. We have thread requirements here that Kat has included. And of course, all of these little icons are consistent throughout all of the topics and forums. You can see exactly what you're getting into when you click on the topic. And if you did want to edit anything at any time, you just kind of look for this downward caret. Call it a context menu or an action menu, but either way, it's like a downward caret, and you just click on it to either view the topic, edit the topic, hide it from users, or assess the topic. So you can do pretty much anything straight from that context menu. So if I did want to assess my topic, I can click Assess Topic, and it should open up a list of my participants and whether they have posted and if I evaluated them yet, which I have not. So you just kind of have to click on topic score, and it should bring up any general feedback you want to provide. You can provide the score up in the top right. And then if this student posted multiple posts in multiple topics, I would see what the post was named, what they wrote, and then I can provide their score and feedback. I don't believe I did individual posts on this one, which is why it shows me the post, and then I can provide the score for their overall participation here. If you did have multiple posts from a student, you can click sort by and then either do post subject or post date. So if you wanted it to be alphabetical, you can do post subject. If you wanted it to be most recent to not most recent or oldest, you can do post date. So it's a little bit easier to look at when you have more students and more posts from them, But essentially what you do is you just go into the assess topic area and then click on the topic score here. I believe you can also click on the student names if there's multiple students, so you have that option too. Pretty much anything that can be underlined and is in blue, you can click on, and that should bring you to a grading window. If you wanted to publish all feedback all at once, you can just kind of click this box here and click publish all feedback, and then it would send out that grade to the students along with your feedback notes if you had any. So that is an option as well. But it's pretty much just as simple as that. You just go to your discussions tool, and once you're ready to grade something, you just click on that little context menu and click assess topic, and then go to town. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and it's really not too bad once you get past the vocabulary leap. It's a little bit different, but as long as you use the same words that Brightspace is using, like you tell the students to create a thread instead of a topic, they'll be able to understand what's going on, and it'll become like second nature in no time. So are there any questions about discussions before we move on to our other two? All right. So that took a half hour, but the other ones should not, because a lot of the same things that we looked at here in discussions apply to the other two tools. So it really should not take that long. But before I leave discussions, I do want to point out that statistics is a very nice little area. It's right at the top of the tool, and it shows you how many threads were created, how many replies in all of your forums. If you had that moderator option on, it tells you how many unapproved posts are left to approve. And then it just displays all of the student names, how many threads they've created, how many replies, how many they've read, and then so on and so forth. So if you have a whole bunch of students, you can see all of their progress in your discussions tool. And I believe you could also see it by forum and topic creation as well. So you can see it from the user side, and you can see it from the forum creation too. And that is right here at the top, and you can see that at any point. So the next one we will go on to is assignments, and you could just click on that in the nav bar, and it opens right up. If you have created assignments already, you'll notice that they are right here listed, and they have different dates for like the due date. They have how many assignments were completed based on how many students you have. I only have one, so that's why it says one, and so on and so forth. If you wanted to click on anything to edit it, you can just click on that context menu. We can view our submissions from here, edit the assignment, make it visible if it's not visible already, delete it, and copy it if we want to use it for a different assignment. So to create one, if you do not already, we can click New Assignment, and it will open up the New Assignment page. And it looks a little bit different than the discussion area, obviously, because it's different in terms of activities, but some of the things are still the same. We have our name for our assignment, so we can say free write number 2, because I think I already have number 1. If you want it to be graded, you can provide a score. And then you can also choose your grade items. You can also create and link it right from here. It's a little bit different than the discussion tool where you get to create it with the link. In this case, because I don't have a grade item with this name on it, it's asking me to create a new one. So I'll just click OK. And that only appears if you click on your score out of field that says ungraded and change it to a graded item. So if you want it to be ungraded, then just leave it alone. Otherwise, click on score out of and provide a number of points. It is defaulted to no due date, but because it's an assignment, we probably want it to have one. So I'll just click on a week from now. It defaults to 11:59 p.m., which is nice because that's what I was going to do anyway. And then it wants us to provide some instructions. And the HTML editor here is a little bit different, as you've noticed. There's bold, italics, and underline. We have numbered and bulleted lists. And then we also have insert stuff, which looks a little bit different. But you can still add your video notes that you want and any files that apply to this assignment. It just looks a little bit different than the other HTML editors. But you just kind of type in your instructions and anything else you want to add, like your videos. And then at the bottom here, we have file uploads. So you can just upload them to the assignment instead of including it in your text box. You can add a link to an existing activity. So if you want to refer back to a resource you have in your content tool, that's what you can do here. And then you can also attach a web link. So if you wanted to link out to a different website, you could do that as well. So these are slightly different icons than we've seen previously, but once you click on them, they look a lot like other icons we've interacted with before. So then you can also record audio and video. So if you'd rather speak out your instructions, you can totally do that. They just kind of look like attachments in the assignment page itself. So students should still be able to look at them. And then before you save and close it, you can click on the visibility here to make it visible or keep it hidden. I believe by default it is hidden. So just keep an eye on that, just in case you want to make it available as soon as you save it. Also here on the right, we have availability dates and conditions, submission and completion, and evaluation and feedback. Now, I'll be honest, this looks a lot different than what it looked like maybe about 10 minutes ago for me. So it might look a bit different for you. It might look like the discussion page where it had 3 tabs at the top that you can click on, or it might look like these little blocks on the right. So if it does look like the blocks on the right, you just click on this arrow to unleash the details. You can have your availability dates here with your start date and end date. But if you think a due date is sufficient, then just leave it as it is. We also have our release conditions as we've seen, but something that's different is the special access, which is for accommodations. So we can manage our special access so we can make our assignments available to a select group of users for a different set of dates. So if we click add special access, we can add users to special access so that they can have separate dates for submission than the rest of the class. So we have 2 options here: allow users with special access to submit outside the normal availability dates, and then allow only users with special access to see this folder. And I believe by folder, they kind of just mean assignment. So usually the first one is what we recommend for if you are just extending a due date. So we can add users to special access, and we can provide new due dates for a specific person. And this person obviously has to be a participant in your course. So I can click on my only student and say that their new due date is the 26th. So they have a little bit more time, and we will say 11:59 p.m. So this is a new due date exactly for this person. So if you have multiple people you need to set these due dates for, you will have to add them individually, at least to my knowledge. So then once you're ready, you just click save, and then you see what you have just entered. So my student MU has a new due date of October 26th at 11:59 p.m. So then you can go back and add more users if you need to. You can also edit this and exit out or delete it if you don't need it anymore. But then you just save and close, and that special access is then granted to that specific student for this assignment. And then we also have submission and completion, which is where we decide what kind of file type we're talking about here, or rather submission type, how many files are allowed per submission, if we are going with file submissions, and other little details like that. So for submission type, we have a couple different options. We have file submission, which is your typical having a student upload a file to this assignment page. Moodle use that a lot, and we always use that. It's pretty much popular. Text submission is the other one that was pretty popular on Moodle. That involves the student actually typing on the web page, so it doesn't involve submitting a file at all. They just type their response on the assignment page itself. So that would be good for like a reflection or something quick, or a free write. We also have on-paper submission, which is if you received it physically, like in class, you have their paper in your hands. They don't have to submit anything, but you can actually decide how it's marked as completed. You can say it's automatically marked complete upon the due date, so it's assumed that you have accepted it from the student. You can have it manually by learners, so they can hand it in to you and then come in here and check it off themselves. Or as soon as you grade it using Brightspace, then it is automatically marked complete. So either of those options is available, and it's only for the on-paper submission type, just because Brightspace also wants to know how to mark this as complete. Because if you have file or text submissions, it's kind of obvious. Whenever they submit it, that's when it's complete. But the physical in-person is a little bit harder to judge. So make sure you select the right option for your needs. Then we also have observed in person, which would be like a presentation or maybe a lab. Whatever is observed in person and does not require a file submission, you can also have this marked as complete area changed to whatever you need. So those last two have the marked as complete area, whereas file submission has these two options. You can have an unlimited amount of files or just one file. And then for if you do select unlimited, you can choose whether you keep all of the submissions or you only allow one submission or only the most recent submission. So say a student submitted like 5 files, but they're all like updates of the previous one. You can say like only the most recent is kept, or you can just keep it at one file from the get-go, and that kind of erases any confusion. Then I believe text submission only lets you decide here whether all submissions are kept, one is allowed, most recent is kept. So we'll keep it on file submission just because it's the most popular. You can choose to include a notification email. So if you want to be notified when someone submits an assignment to this page, you can include your email that you would like to get that notification to. And that's pretty much the submission and completion area. And then of course, the last area is evaluation and feedback, which includes our rubrics. So if you wanted to add a rubric here, you can create a new one or add existing. Or if your page looks like the discussions page, you will probably see the same link we saw there that says create new rubric in a new window. We also have the option to enable annotation tools. So when you go in to assess file submissions specifically, you can check off annotation tools so you can add comments and highlight things. They're very useful. So I recommend keeping that on, but if you'd rather not, then you can just uncheck that. And then you can have anonymous marking. So if you don't want to see the students' names when you're looking at submissions, you can have this checked so that you can hide the student names and you won't know who's you're grading until you submit the grade. So all of that to say, that's how you create an assignment. It may look different than what you see here, but if it does look like you see here, you just kind of click on the arrows to expand these different sections, and it does give you a nice little summary of what you actually decided upon, so you know without having to open them back up what you already selected. So I'm going to save and close this so you can see what it looks like on our assignment page. So I don't have categories for assignments, but you can create them if you like. So if you plan on having different types of assignments, like maybe reflections or literary analyses or like a longer form paper, you can create categories to kind of separate those assignments into different groups. They're not really necessary. It's more like a visual thing, more like aesthetic than anything else. But if you did want to create a category, you just click on Edit Categories and then add a category. So I can call my category free writes because I believe I have 1 or 2 of them now. I'll click on create and we have our category. So if you wanted to actually apply a category to any assignment, you just kind of click on it and you can select which category your assignment goes to. So you can kind of do it retroactively if you decide afterwards you'd rather organize them. And then it shows up here as a separate row. So we can have our free writes moved down to a different category, either by clicking the context menu and clicking editing assignment, or going back and clicking bulk edit. I'm a bit new to this little setup here, so forgive me for being a little all over the place. But I'm going to check this one and click bulk edit and just move it to the new category. All right. So I guess that was also a good time to mention, when you click on a box next to any assignment and click bulk edit, you can edit whatever you have checked, and it lets you do the start and end dates, the due dates, and the categories right from here. So if you wanted to change any dates and any names of assignments, you can do that just by checking on the boxes next to them and clicking bulk edit and just going through and editing those details. So we have our assignments here, and just like with the discussions, we have some very useful icons to keep in mind. So this crossed out eyeball is the visibility check, essentially. So both of these assignments are hidden from students right now. And if I wanted to change that, I would just click on this little context menu and make it visible to users. So then it loads the page again and the eyeball is gone. So it's an easy way to make your information visible. I believe you can also check them and click on more actions and just make the checked ones visible to users. So if you had all of your assignments invisible, you can just click the little box at the top to highlight them all and then make them visible to users, or hide them all if you want to. Once it comes time for submission and you want to look at the submissions, you would just click on the context menu and click View Submissions. Unfortunately, I do not have any submissions to look at, but if I did, they would be listed by user, and you'd be able to see all the users who have already submitted. And then, of course, you could go over to the Submissions tab and see all of the submissions by different users. So you can either click on a submission to go in and edit them, or click on users and click on them and see their submission specifically. I believe when you create an anonymous submission situation, you won't see the users tab at all. You probably just see the submissions. You can also email users without submissions. So if we're getting close to the due date of an assignment, you can email the users who haven't submitted yet and kind of give them a little nudge. It BCCs everyone so they can't tell who else hasn't submitted yet. So I have my one student who has not yet submitted to my assignment yet. So I can just kind of say, hey, it's due soon. And then either quick link them to the assignment I'm talking about, or just leave it as is and let them know. So then you can send it out, it sends to the student, and then they know, oh, right, I forgot to submit to that assignment. Now, if you're someone who likes to use Word for track changes, so if you had file submissions from students and you want to track changes on their document instead of using the annotation tools in Brightspace, you can add feedback files. So you can click on feedback files and then upload a zip file of all the feedback files you have for your students. And that's an easy way to kind of just put in your feedback instead of going through the annotation tools in Brightspace. But that's completely up to you. You also have a submission log that you can look at. Because I don't have any submissions, maybe it won't be so useful, but you could see who has submitted, who has started it, if it's like a text submission or something like that, and things like that. But essentially the assignments, you just go to the tool and you're looking at your assignments. If you want to make a new one, you click on new assignment and fill it out that way. And then when you're ready to actually assess it, you use the context menu and view submissions. So that's pretty much our assignment tool. It only took 15 minutes this time. Does anyone have any questions about that whirlwind of an experience? Okay. Then we will.
No, that's great.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. So our last and maybe the most interesting is quizzes. So if you have used quizzes in Moodle, you are probably going to be an expert at this. It's essentially exactly the same. So I have my quizzes tool here. You'll usually find it in the nav bar, just like the other ones. You'll notice that I do have a quiz here already, and that is because I imported some stuff from Moodle, and one of them happened to be a quiz. So there's already a quiz in here. So just know that when you do import your course package from Moodle, you will get all of your quizzes. You will get all of your discussions too, which I forgot to mention. The only thing with the discussion forums is that they will all go into one bucket forum in Brightspace, and you'll have to kind of redistribute them if you're using forums to organize your discussion topics. But otherwise, all of the Moodle things go directly to the tools they're supposed to go to. So you don't have to worry about things not formatting correctly. So actually, I'm curious if this actually brought over my questions. It should have. But I'm going to preview this quiz just real quick. And it should include the questions that I put in here, which is great. I'm very excited about that. So if you imported all of your quizzes, all of the questions will pull over as well. That may have been obvious, but it's exciting to me. So this is just a quick little preview of what the quiz can look like. We also have the time limit that I set over in Moodle. That is still here too, and that is all well and good. So I'm going to go back to our quizzes tool and show you how to set one up. So just like with assignments, you can create categories for your quizzes. So if you plan on doing like chapter quizzes and then you have your big exams like a midterm and a final, you can make different categories for those in the same way you would for assignments. You just click edit categories, add category, and then make a name for it. We can create a new quiz from here. Also, we can go to question library at the top and create a question bank essentially. So if you'd rather just start creating questions, you can go right to the question library and either create some new questions right from here, or you can import them in either from a publisher or from the learning repository, or if you have some existing questions that you want to put into your question library, you can click on that. So I have these two from my quiz. They're here. So this is essentially what your question library looks like, and you could do as you would in Moodle, perhaps create all of your questions and then create your quiz and pull in the questions from the question library. But just like you could in Moodle, you can just create a new quiz and then create new questions in that quiz. And before I actually create a new quiz, I do want to mention that if you joined us back in March for our trainings before we went into quarantine, we did talk about the Aiken format of question imports, and that's essentially like a WordPad text document formatted specifically for multiple choice questions. So if you are using multiple choice for your quizzes, you can import a whole bunch of them by just typing them out in a very specific format in a text form or text file rather, and then importing that. And Moodle would kind of translate that to multiple choice questions. We do have a separate file for Brightspace that includes other question types. I believe Kat has it. I think we may be sending it out tomorrow morning with the recording links. I could be wrong, but it includes different question types like short answer, I believe, and multiple choice, fill in the blanks perhaps. I don't want to hype it up too much, but I do know that it has more question types. So if you are planning on doing like a mass import of your own questions, that might be an option. And that is something we'll send out. The format is very important, so we'll probably send out a little bit of a skeleton version of it. All that to say, let's make a new quiz. So when you click on new quiz, you look at a setup very similar to the discussion tool. And we start with our properties tab. So here we have our name, we have quiz 2. If you have categories or you want to create one, you can create one right here, or you can just click on whatever category you want. Or if you don't want one, you can just click no category. And then we have quiz questions right here in the middle. So you can add or edit your questions right from here. And it brings you to this nifty little question editor. And it asks you if you want to add them or import them. So you have that same option that you did in the question library, except here you can upload a file directly to this quiz. You can browse the question library for quiz questions you already have, and then you can import from the learning repository. If you want to add them from scratch, you can just click add and then add a new question. You can then add a section to your quiz, or you could do a question pool, which I believe is adding like 5 questions, and then it shows like a random number of questions to students. Like if you wanted a 2-question quiz, it would show them 2 random questions from those 5 questions. So to keep it all interesting and fresh. So if I wanted to create a new question from scratch, I just click on new question and then choose my type. So we have true or false, multiple choice, multi-select, multi-short answer, and fill in the blanks. Kat went over fill in the blanks, and I thought it was interesting, so I'm also going to do that because it looks a little confusing at first. I believe multiple choice is pretty straightforward. You just type in your question in the title area and then provide your options. But with fill in the blanks, it's a little bit different. So for the title of your questions, they're completely optional, but it might be something useful if you say like chapter 1, section 1 or something. So if you want to tie it back to a book, so you know where this question is coming from or what it applies to, if you plan on using it for like the final or something, you can give it a pretty organizational name so it's easier to find. You can give it a certain amount of points. So maybe this one's worth 2 points. If you want to do difficulty ratings, you can do 1 through 5. So I believe that helps with statistics later on if you wanted to look at how many people got the level 1 questions right versus the level 5 questions. We also have the ability to insert an image. So if you wanted to do a fill in the blank for an image, like provide a picture of a bird and then say, this bird is a blank, you can say something like that. And then provide the description for it as well in case it doesn't load. It's like the alternative text. But with the fill in the blanks, we have a number of blanks that we can have and add and a number of texts. So text number 1 applies to the first part of the question that is text. So the lead up to the first blank. So let's see, the color of the sky is, and then the blank would be the answer. So you can just leave it with the color of the sky is. You don't need to put in a line or anything, though you can if you want to. And the answer for this blank would be blue. We could provide a certain weight to it in case we want to have multiple blanks in this question. We can choose whether the case is insensitive, so it doesn't matter if it's lowercase or uppercase, or we can make it case sensitive. If we want to continue our question a little bit, we can add more blanks. We can finish the sentence out with a second grouping of text, or we can just kind of leave it where it is. But I'm just going to finish this out with the color of the sky is blue, and that is great. If I wanted to add another blank or another sentence, I can add another text box here. And if I wanted to add another blank, you just do the same over here. You can add as many or as little as you like. So if you did have multiple blanks, you can choose to weight them differently so they can both be 50% to add up to the total of 2 points, completely up to you. You can create question hints in case it's a particularly hard-hitting question. You can do that. And then feedback for whether they get it right or wrong. So that's also an option here. So you can keep going through your question creations by clicking Save and New. You could preview it right here at the bottom. So if you're wondering what it's going to look like maybe this doesn't look so good. So maybe I wouldn't put the last bit of text in there. But the color of the sky is, and then it has a text box. So that is pretty cool. And it also shows you what it would look like when you're grading the question. So it doesn't look like this. It looks like this, and it looks a little better with the end text. So I am going to go back to my quiz 2. It didn't bring me back to my question, which is a little concerning. But essentially, what you would do is you would save that question instead of going back and losing your progress. But when you want to make new questions, you can just click New Question and then select your type and continue on with your editing. So do we have any questions about questions and quizzes? No, I'm rushing because we're running out of time. Kat went a little more in depth with it on Monday, so we are going to include both recordings in tomorrow's email, so you can kind of review hers too. But yeah, if you have any questions, you could always email us too, and we will try and figure it out for you if we can't figure it out ourselves. So then once your quiz is ready to go and you want to review them, you can go down to the quizzes tool and click on your context menu, and you can actually go in and grade them. So you can click on Grade Quiz, and it will show the attempts. Again, I do not have attempts, but it would show the users here, and you would click on the user, look at their attempt, and give them a grade. That's especially pertinent if you're using the text questions like short answer or written response. You will want to go in and grade them. I believe there is an option in the settings of a quiz that you can go through and say that it releases the grade as soon as they complete the quiz, which is useful for your multiple choices and things like that. We will go back in and look at that quiz too, and I'll show you what I mean. But in this grading area, we have it by users, by attempts, and by questions. So you can do some blind marking here if you would like, so you don't see whose responses are whose. and you can view the graded responses. It also tells you the type of question it is, how many points it's worth, all of that fun stuff. And as with everything else, you can edit your quizzes with this context menu. Click on edit. It'll bring you right back to where you were. So we had our quiz questions here. You go in and add them, make sure you save them. And then you have restrictions, which is where you can add your special access for accommodations. So your time and a half. So you can scroll down. You will see your timing on this tab as well. So the recommended time limit for your quiz, no matter who they are. But if you do have students with special access, you can scroll right on down, and just with the assignments, you can just click add users to special access. You do have a couple extra options here though, because it is a quiz. You can change the timing. You could either have it be no changes from the timing that's currently in place. You can change the recommended time limit. You can change an enforced time limit. So it could be a hard 120 minutes, or it could be recommended that it's 120, but it doesn't have to be. You can override the number of attempts allowed and then say what that would be. And then you would select the users that this applies to. So it can be multiple ones. You can just click on the checkbox and then add the special access. And pretty much everything else is the same as your assignments. You have your assessments area where you can connect it to the gradebook and create your grade item. You can monitor your attempts allowed, and then what the grade calculation is if you have multiple attempts. And then I believe we have submission views here at the end. This was described a little bit more in CATS, so I will defer to that because we are running out of time, and I have one more thing I want to mention. But I believe this is like a special case where you have your quiz and you want to have them see specific things for this quiz. So maybe you don't want them to see the questions and their answers for some reason, you just want to see the grade. That's something that would count as an additional view. So that's pretty much our run through of quizzes. And in the last minute, I just want to say how you would add that to your content tool. So all of these things we've made today, we've made them in their native tools. But if you want to add them to your content tool, as you probably do, you just have to click on your module that you want to add it to and click existing activities. Then we can go and find our assignments and just click on it, and it adds to our module. Same applies for the quizzes and for the discussions. You just click existing activities, click on the discussion or quiz, and it adds to your content module. And of course, you can create them from here too, but I usually like doing the ones in the native tool because you get more options. So all of that to say, we finished it. Does anyone have any questions before we depart?
Thanks, that was great.
I'm glad you thought so. I'm sorry if it was fast and crazy, but there was a lot to discuss.
Yeah, no, it's fast, but it made a lot of sense.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, we will be offering, obviously, these same things in the spring. So if it didn't make sense this time around, you could come back in the spring or even do a one-on-one with me or Kat, and we will sit down and actually do it for your specific use case. But if you guys don't have any questions, you're free to go. But if you do, I'm happy to stay around and chat, but I will stop the recording. It's already an hour, so goodbye, recording.